Hey y'all, you're gonna need to be particularly loud. This camera's microphone isn't super great, so yeah, we could do that. That's probably a good idea. I mean, it was because we were supposed to put it near an outlet, but this one. Okay, so that. Oh,
Everybody good? Mark, you ready? Plain text: the United States federal government has significantly decreased its military naval airtight access area denial offensive capability in the South China Sea, including carrier strike groups, to a force posture consistent with deterrence by denial. The United States federal government significantly decreased its military naval counter anti-access area denial offensive capability in the South China Sea, including carrier strike groups, to a force posture consistent with deterrence by denial. Which one is naval strategy? Submarines naval consolidation in the South China Sea is decking CSG effectiveness in the status quo. The first argument is deterrence by punishment has failed. The ace points that we're using deterrence by punishment under the air-sea battle concept deployed in Southeast Asia and Northeast Asia, and that is defined by offensive strike force posture in the South China Sea and East China Seas, and proliferating red lines to be able to try and deter China from expanding. The base point is that it's failing in the status quo because of salami slicing. China is using low-level tactical expansion that pushes the security dilemma onto the United States to either underreact and lose strategic ground that's critical to our allies, or overreact and risk conflict with the People's Republic of China. The Seas point is that this gives them the advantage of establishing a fait accompli, which lowers the cost of revisionism, because by the time that we realize that they've expanded throughout the South China Sea, it would be too late to signal that they've lost their bloodline. The second argument is that anti-access area denial from the PRC would wreck the carrier. The ace point is that they have the DF-21 as ship-seeking intermediate range ballistic missile, which ensures missile kill success within 1,000 miles of their coastline. The least point is that they have the Su-27 surface-to-air combat system, which eliminates the option of air deployment, entirely negating the strategic utility of deploying the carrier to the South China Sea. The third argument is that offensive carrier strike group posture has led to a global leading to a global naval arms race in the status quo. The ace is that China, Japan, Brazil, India, and Russia have all massively increased their naval power and deployments there, which positions major economic and political powers with the ability to deploy complex naval assets, and the United States is utilizing deterrence by punishment as their guiding force. The base point is that signaling DBP is the best way to do that, results in a proliferating series of security dilemmas that risk miscalculation accidents and eliminates the possibility of strategic diplomacy, because if individuals cross red lines, they can't afford to back down on diplomatic standards, otherwise they won't they'll lose the credibility of all their force posture. The beast one of the plan solves. The first argument is the app reinvigorates strategic deterrence. So Yale and Michigan study of 54 cases of deterrence concluded that 7 out of 8 times deterrence by denial avoided conflict because it creates a front line of complex military intelligence and capabilities that can't be circumvented by adversarial naval strategies. But also they said that it was the highest rate of avoiding conflict of any other strategy. The second argument that solves deterrence. Deterrence by denial integrates allies, which solves their worries over miscalculation and pushing the security dilemma back onto the United States, because they risk that they have to keep a balance between the United States and China, because they need economic relationships with the PRC and security relationships with the United States. The third argument is that allies can deploy submarines, anti-ship missiles to clog waterways, and that results in agile deterrence without provoking China, which gives them more sway over the way the United States is deploying its military strategy in the status quo. The fourth argument is that the plan reorients the role of the carrier towards global command of the seas, which allows for strategic flexibility and agile deterrence, as opposed to consolidating all of our naval strategy within one area, which prevents it from agilely being deployed elsewhere. The C's point is the impacts of scenario 1 is dual naval assurance. The A's point is that concentrating naval offensive naval power eliminates adversary assurance by signaling a war footing that encourages counterbalancing securitization. But if we were to lose the carrier as a result of anti-ship missiles, then we would lose all credibility with our allies and our enemies. The second argument is that either scenario wrecks U.S. naval power, because carriers are key to soft power because of the ability to provide things like natural disaster aid, maritime security operations. But if they get struck, that means we also lose the hard power of the United States Navy. The third argument is that naval arms race results in accidents, miscalculation, and tensions that eliminates diplomacy. Escalation is extremely likely, especially inside the South China Sea, because there's not clear. There are a series of mismatched perceptions between the United States and China about what constitutes a red line for nuclear escalation. If the ships were to collide, and there were accidental launches of missiles, that could result in exchange between the United States and the People's Republic of China. Scenario 2 is trade. The first argument is that naval power prevents trade disruption by deploying counter-piracy and freedom of navigation operations to prevent blockades of critical trade routes. Second argument is that Asia Pacific is uniquely key because APEC is worth 58% of global GDP, and by 2030, 90% of the world's middle class will live in Southeast Asia, which means it's necessarily critical for global trade. The next argument is that global trade is necessary for economic interdependence, which prevents resource wars and also deters conflict, because individuals that don't want to go to war with someone that they need critical resources from that they trade with, but also there would be no need for resource wars if they get access to trade. Contention 2 is maritime cooperation. Subpoint A is that South China Sea military presence leading to a lack of northeast maritime cooperation. The first argument is that the United States operations and naval operations in the region look like intelligence, surveillance, or reconnaissance operations. Aegon has reported that they do not like to cooperate too much with the United States in terms of maritime security because they believe that it will be perceived by China as leaning too heavily to one side or the other. The second argument is that they have to balance between the United States and China because the PRC is worth 90% of all trade, and the United States can supplement our allies' economic needs, which means that our offensive naval presence gives credibility to the Chinese containment narrative, also means that our allies are less likely to support a continued offensive strike posture. The third argument is that after the shifts in strategy, cooperation will naturally decrease, which forces the allies to pick sides and results in polarization in the region, but also inhibits maritime security operations because the offensive naval presence in South China Sea means that there are certain areas where other maritime security operations aren't allowed to go because there risk miscalculation between the United States. Beast Point is plan solves first argument is deterrence by denial is a form of mutual assurance that isn't provocative, which pushes the burden back onto China to either continue the massive expansion and sacrifice their strategic gains with relationships in the region because they would take off all of their economic trading partners, or they can withdraw and engender peace. The second argument is that there resolves cooperation because we eliminate the security focus that China has continually criticized in the South China Sea, indicating that they would want to cooperate with us more because we're not there simply to offensively deter them. The third argument is that cooperation is key because South China Sea maritime domain awareness is declining as a result of gray zones, which are the areas where individuals don't want to travel because of the United States naval presence that I described in the status quo. Scenario 1 is terrorism. The basic point is that smuggling becomes increasingly more likely when we don't have a common operational picture as a result of gray zones that exist in the South China Sea. The status quo. The second argument is that this makes Pakistan terrorists more likely. In 2012, 6 members of AQP were prosecuted and admitted to utilizing smuggling networks to attempt to get access to India to be able to detonate a dirty bomb. The third argument is that this risks triggering India's Cold Start doctrine because they have after the attack on Indian parliament as a result of Pakistani terrorists, they implemented the Cold Start doctrine that indicates that they would launch a strategic nuclear weapon against Pakistan. Pakistan responded by deploying tactical nuclear weapons to the border. Who said that they would retaliate in kind if India used the Cold Start doctrine, which means that escalation is extremely likely. Third argument is that this risks extinction. 2/3 of the world's population lives in this region, and India and China are the most populous countries, which means that there is a high likelihood for extinction. There have been scientific studies that says that even a limited nuclear war in this area would cause global extinction. Scenario 2 is overfishing. First argument is 2/3 of all large fish in the ocean have been caught, and 2/3 of the world's population relies on fishing as a source of food. The second argument is that overfishing becomes inevitable as a result of gray zones and a lack of maritime domain awareness because they can't get access to areas where enforce regulations. The third argument is Asia Pacific is necessarily key because where 50% of all fish demand comes from the world. The fourth argument is that overfishing in the South China Sea, particularly in the Asia Pacific, will ultimately deplete biodiversity because those are necessarily critical for food resources, which collapses biodiversity writ large, results in a domino effect that would collapse all life on Earth.
All right, cross-section. First off, can you define deterrence by denial?
Sure. So deterrence by denial is a force strike posture that withdraws to a certain degree and a certain number that uses inhibiting techniques as opposed to punishment techniques, right?
Which inhibiting techniques?
They look like clogged waterways with mines. They have coastal areas lined with anti-ship missiles. Naval presence is still about, just not nearly as much, and it's mostly in the area for assuring allies as opposed to offensive strike capabilities against the Chinese man.
So in a post-act world, you're removing, the carrier strikers are still going to be there, or they're going to be less of them because now we're relying on these clogged waterways and everything.
There will be significantly less carrier strike groups in the region.
Okay. So removing the 5th Fleet, cutting the 5th Fleet half.
7th Fleet.
Sorry.
We pull, significantly in the context of presence would mean that our offensive strike force capabilities are reduced to a point where we can't just launch a mainland invasion of China, right? So the majority of carrier strike groups would be reoriented towards global command and seas, which I saw in this argument before.
So they're not just going to be your base.
They're not just going to be chilling like right outside the South China Sea, right?
Cool. And then on advantage 1, yours. Can you repeat what your second uniqueness scenario was? You were talking about like the surface-to-air combat system.
Oh, right. So we say that Chinese anti-access area denial technology is better than our counter technology. The DF-21 would destroy the barrier, and the C-27 would eliminate our air combat options.
Okay. And then can you repeat what your second or the first where you talked the first impact scenario you read about naval assurance? So are you just talking about how when the U.S. stops reduces its carrier strike, China's going to stop aggressing? What's the scenario you're going from?
So there's two, right? One is that it's assuring our allies that our naval presence is not there to provoke China and to make the security dilemma more complex. But the other is that if our carriers get hit by a Chinese anti-ship missile, that would collapse credibility of our naval power.
So do you stop in a post-app world? Does China stop aggressing? Does China
Yes.
stop? It does. Okay.
Yes.
How?
So we say that we push the security dilemma back onto the People's Republic of China. Right now they are winning a containment area that the United States is amassing naval presence, not because of anything China's doing, because their strategy is low-level tactical expansion, right? When we pull back, that forces China to
Does China
either...
stop island building in a post-app world?
We say that they wouldn't need to island build anymore, because the reason that they're island building is to make claims that that is territory they have that hasn't crossed U.S. red lines.
Okay.
Qualification. Yes, please. Do my best. Anyone not ready? First, Spanish Pacific hegemony base, force needs to use ballistic missile defense and offensive capabilities. Able to hold the line of the status quo. We know the first calculation of China West are able to trying to redraw the lines of military forces. The status quo, the East Force BLA specifically identify the China trying to increase security, specifically towards the IDI, or to not quite the status quo, the East Force and military intelligence specifically said the PLA is creating naval training exercises. The status quo trying to counterbalance United States and NATO in the status quo indicates they're trying to get offensive capabilities. capability against the United States now, which means it's not an issue whether or not the U.S. capabilities, offensive or defensive, rather than they want to have, but want to posture against the United States, able to get their own access to regional hegemony. It's not a question whether or not what the U.S. capability is. It's a question that their articulation is Putin also identified Russia has identified the Asia-Pacific region as an integral part of Russia's counterbalancing strategy, of Russia's hegemonic strategy, and identified that the fact that they're trying to use the Pacific fleet as a way to support Russia's access to sovereignty in the South Pole. The second articulation of those Russian counter also increasing cooperation bilaterally, not just acting unilaterally against the United States. We identified that last summer. They identified the 6-day military drill that was in the Yellow Sea Pacific, trying to be able to get access to more access to regional hegemony against the United States, which means it's not an issue whether or not the United States has offensive or defensive capabilities. It's a question that the U.S. is trying to get a counterbalance the region there. It's not an issue with the strategy. It's a question that the United States is trying to get access to the port of regional hegemony. The peace force, we identified the PLA specifically increased naval drills by 500% after the United States actually implemented the end of the Air Losing 9 strategy. The negative team tried to implement the affirmative change strategy to indicate the fact that China's already responding in a way that is offensive in the South Korea. Russia also increased naval drills and its nuclear posturing built in the South, specifically trying to get access to real islands in the South, which is why they invested in the Yazan subclass, which increased 57% military spending in the South, indicating the fact that they're trying to counter areas of the United States in the South means they're already working together against the US right now. The third articulation of those US return strategy requires hardline right now. It's able to stop in a conventional response and a conventional war between China and Russia right now. The eighth point we identified is that US force strike capability, specifically keeping this for example reasons. The eighth one we identified is we have access to the largest level of the seventh fleet to be able to have access to the largest capabilities in the South. We identified they're able to have not only the Asian defensive block system, but also they're able to have access to SSBMs, which are able to counterbalance China and Russia right now, because it's a question of whether or not the reason why they're not engaging in conventional conflict in the South, because they feel the United States first strike capability, which means this is always able to resolve the question of whether or not it was going to potentially more than first, because US nuclear deterrent is simply too strong. We identified that won't use it. When you return to area now, you get rid of these SSBMs and you remove the terror strike, which is where the SSBMs are launched in the South Pole. Indicates the fact that necessarily into this expansion. We also identified that Russia and China don't have countermeasures to block the fleet in the South Pole. United reason that's why the Asian sensibly block free system, or the SSBMs are specifically able to counterbalance with China and Russia in the South Pole. Indicates no propensity for those to be able to block them. Indicates we do actually have deterrence right now. You have also identified the US Navy specifically increasing naval spending in the region, and the fact that they're investing in foreign missile defense right now indicates the fact that they're able to counterbalance China and Russia in the South Pole. We identified that removing the naval presence, specifically the naval carriers, is specifically key because it incentivizes China and Russia to stop acting conventional wars. The first articulation we don't have to get from is specifically just appeasement. The eighth point of China has maintained an 8% growth rate in order to return to the economy. Indicates the fact that they're going to go to the South China Sea, and it's only a question of how they do so. We identified that conventional conflict skills inevitable and work deeper. The peace point that is the war. The reason why World War I happened, the last major naval conflict happened because of a perceived U.S. weakness. Yeah, even if it's not actually U.S. weakness is perceived as such, indicates the fact that China and Russia are going to secure it as in the world of the affirmative. This is one. It's Russia specifically identified that their entire economy is based on an anti-Western narrative. Look what happened in the Cold War. Indicates the fact that they would perceive the United States as an action as a strategy by bold. We identified two scenarios for the states. One is the EPA when the United States with the EPA missile defense system in the Middle East, specifically offers cause Russia to turn to offensive missile capabilities in California, indicating even the United States tries to implement a strategy for that only causes further involvement of Russia. But the peace force we identified that Obama specifically when he's had a new strike training, only triggers Russia not to work with us on issues of random distress, indicating the fact that Russia will just perceive this is a peace in the second link specifically that with stopping the strike groups advocates to stop the ability to the reason why they're not striking and acting offensively in the capabilities because of the U.S. deterrent. The ace force we identified that they were able to roll the United States conventional over random 2000. Identified that they believe they're able to do that. Russia and China believe they're able to beat the United States because they have access to a massive head start right now in the conventional world. The peace force U.S. Navy is not able to have Navy report to Congress to identify that we would not move forward conventional war China and Russia in the South Pole. The peace force appeal general Blinken specifically said that only deterrent strategy for the other right now is the fact that the U.S. has first strike capability, indicating the fact that we're going to remove that you make those impacts known with the peace force we identify the unilateral decrease is unprecedented, and because it triggers the perception that the U.S. is weak in the region between even if it's true that you maintain some sort of capability, you only make it more inevitable because it's perceived as the U.S. weakness. The peace force internally is first is mass devastation from a pan-Pacific war. The first articulation is Pacific war specifically cause escalation to rise in force scenarios. The we identify Taiwan potentially declared an intense policy for because they're perceived as declining U.S. hegemony means that the way for them to be able to counterbalance China's try to one of the peace wars. India, we identified they're trying to get access to China's regional territory in the Hakatani region right now. So the reason why they're going to try to get access to that right now in the Hakatani region, which means they would necessarily realize this is a possibility for them to be able to secure it because the U.S. isn't able to cover them with the first strike to clear the seas. But Japan, we are necessarily happy because Japan feels the U.S. nuclear capability significantly decreases which means only increase the amount of Japan freedom, it's only increased proliferation in terms of your advantage. The default counterinsurgency essentially happened in Myanmar, Vietnam because it's perceived as U.S. weakness right now, which means when you get rid of the strike, that also decreases the U.S. ability to counter things like piracy in the South Pole, only makes all of your impacts inevitable. The second tribulation of World War III destroys all the economies. The base won't be identified as for the AGA countries necessarily are being able to are involved with the purpose means all of your impacts become inevitable as the confidence actually declines and markets crash across the world. The sea beast, this also destroys access to energy. 57% of the world's oil and 40% of the world's coal goes to the streets. It indicates that you make all all of your impacts, these explosive impact force impacts, suffering and death. We identified that. 24 individuals died, 9 individuals died for every 24 the written poverty reached. There's a massive amount of increase in death happens. We'll see it further. And 22, there's 2.1 billion individuals living less than $1 a day. Indicates there's a big scenario. These are individuals as the ones that died for a second depletion, though. Is a conventional war costing 60 feet. We identified that. There's a massive amount of. We're only 60 ppm away from the brink of global warming as jazz. But in the looking what happened in the Iraq War, it increased the amount of ppm of CO2 in the atmosphere by 11 ppm, indicating the fact that the massive financial war in the Pacific region will necessarily increase and push past that brink, causing not only approximately 200,000 individuals died because of the pollution, but also making a putting on the risk of extinction, making all of the impacts further inevitable. On the advantage one. On each number one cause fighter indicating that the current strategy is actually working as is the only reason why Russia and China are not aggressively against United States and the status quo. The reason why we're not engaging war right now. On each number two, they say that we're able to have that we're not able to counter Russia and China in the status quo. Bullshit. The first articulation they identified the international blitz and missile suspensions. No, Russia and China don't only ability to counterbalance our aegis that's blocked the system, or that's the status quo indicates fast we're able to maintain regional hegemony. They said that's the block the system exists first. No, we identified the U.S. as cloaking technology as like the excavator indicates the fact they're able to overwhelm their SAS capabilities. The second articulation those countermeasures from the United States indicates they're able to resolve these issues through things like multiple launches, indicating facts in terms of air missiles are a reason why use hegemony is lower. Now you identify the offensive carriers against cause for changes. First articulation, no, is the affirmation incidental because if this is not going to counterbalance against the United States, then they're going to enact an island building against places like Japan and Taiwan, both the occurring Chile means you make all of your impacts of armors incidental, but on your exploiting the solvency. The first articulation is that you destroy the return capability. These point is first strike capability is key. You can cause one disadvantage here, but these point is that the miscalculation becomes inevitable because China's going to expect all allies to fear that and not fear the perceived decline in U.S. hegemony, which means all of your impacts will become inevitable because decreased U.S. hegemony makes all those things inevitable on the impact. So the disadvantages straight turn to your impacts. On advantage two of maritime cooperation. On the link debate. First turns to be Pakistan based, and we identify the current tensions in the Pakistan region arising in the Panjab region of the South. We identify the reports from the community that noted that there's small skirmishes began in 20 Pakistan marches along the border in an attempt to expand the region and expand the region. Military reports from the troops also stated that Pakistan is not easier for not practiced it or marching troops and again for wartime scenario. We estimate from the initial of the troops don't count Pakistan is over 10,000 range enough to be able to resolve Pakistan military and enable to engage in a massive conflict to Pakistan troops. These wars are generally stopping advance. These attacks in the South, we identify the naval ships simply making patrols along the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea are part of an operational spotlight. We don't have these offensive capabilities, which Pakistan fears in the South policy when Pakistan is not him from getting access to war policy for which means without any return Pakistan, without any sort of return Pakistan to war with India because they fear the U.S. offensive capability and first strike capability in the South Coast roots in the war with the Abbey skirmishes in Kashmir region also often calls ethnic cleansing with the second term human trafficking. It's only identified the U.S. Navy is the Navy involved in human trafficking in the South China Sea and the South. The first regulation shows the Department of Navy has adopted a DoD combating trafficking and purchase program to eradicate trafficking within the Department of Navy organization. Second articulation, though, is the leadership of a specific countries make a move to resolve things like piracy in the South. With the U.S. naval purposes bad because instead of distracting time to arbitrage, we only increase the amount of dehumanization, bargaining, purge. All of your attacks talking about how you're able to resolve these sort of things. Resolving piracy is a prior question. Okay.
Is everyone ready?
Yeah.
Your unique arguments have a series of claims about how Russia and China have been deploying lots of counterbalancing measures, including cooperative naval operations. China just deployed their first carrier. If the United States is so damn baller in the status quo, why are China, Russia, Pakistan, the argument you make on case, why are they all building up military power?
It's the theory of offensive realism. The issue is there's 6 billion barrels of oil in the Sakaka region. It's a question of who has access to it. They're trying to get access to that regardless of whether or not the U.S. is there. U.S. there doesn't matter. The question is who controls it, who has access to it, and whether or not places like Japan and Taiwan, which don't have the biggest militaries, are able to have any sort of access to that without the United States.
Okay, why do Japan and Taiwan need access to that?
First of all, we identified they probably have some pretty good ethnic or historical claims as to why Japan has some claims on the Diaoyu or Senkaku Islands, but also we identified that stopping China from being able to get access to that hegemony is uniquely important for things like Taiwan, because in a world where China would have access to that sort of form of hegemony, they would be able to steamroll Taiwan because U.S. first strike capability wouldn't be able to stop them.
Okay, so if they steamrolled Taiwan and they steamrolled Japan, would everybody be dead?
A lot of people would be dead, yes.
So, like, China's going to go in and kill everyone in Taiwan and Japan?
I mean, there's going to be a massive conventional war which kills millions of individuals at least, so...
Okay.
And we've also identified that it gives us inroads to the global warming and extinction scenario because even a small conventional war pushes us over the brink of global warming, war causes
I got you. So your link arguments in the dissent are that the plan looks like appeasement to Russia and China so that they expand further?
Yes.
They're expanding in the status quo, so how is this, like, unique to the affirmative?
The issue is not that they expand further. The issue is that now this triggers a conventional war because they're perceived as a way, when the U.S. gets rid of their first strike capability and the offensive deterrent that goes with that.
Let's talk about that. First strike capabilities. You talk about, like, how SLBMs are deterring them in the status quo, right?
To some extent, but we also identified unique things as to why first strike carrier groups are key.
Okay, so on case then, your second argument is that there's no counterbalancing because we have Aegis and THAAD. How is this responsive to the claim that Chinese A2AD would destroy the carrier and every ship and every plane we launched off the carrier?
Do you know what the HEAD system is?
I'm sorry.
The system that you guys just identified, do you know how it works?
I identified the DF-21 and the Su-27, not
Right.
that. Yeah.
The Aegis SM Block 3 system is intended to counterbalance that system. We have tested it successfully in the Arizona Range Complex and the Gulf of Mexico Range Complex. It was specifically designed to counterbalance that system.
It's like a boost phase interceptor. Then your third argument that you make about how we're able to counteract their SAMs, is that the same argument that you made above?
There is some specific arguments there where we talked about U.S. cloaking technology like the X-band radar and the fact that we have countermeasures via multiple launches which are able to resolve those types of issues.
Sorry, sir.
base. I'm going to go advantage 2, advantage 1, and then this side straight.
On advantage 2, let's start on their arguments. They say that Pakistan is going to expand, but one, this is a result of India because India is watching U.S. naval posturing, which means that there's that they're not going to, or we don't affect the U.S. and Indian Navy, but we actually probably make skirmishes like. Avoid skirmishes. Their impact is ethnic cleansing, but second is going to be that the affirmative is going to heavily outweigh because our impacts are things like the Cold Star Doctrine being triggered in India launching nuclear weapons at Pakistan, which is going to trigger a nuclear war that goes conceded coming out of the LOC, which means that 2/3 of the population living in this area are going to be that's ultimately going to lead to extinction. But also third is going to be they talk about how trafficking is being eliminated now, but they concede that it literally can't happen because of gray zones, because there's this area that is in contest, which means that the trafficking is only increasing in the status quo because no one knows, or people are too afraid to go in here. But then the next argument is going to be that China is going to be able to cooperate with the United States. This goes conceded, which means that the containment narrative that China is pursuing now is going to be eliminated into the world of plan, which means that they're not going to expand because that eliminates their economic ties, that there's no reason for them to keep expanding, which also answers their island building arguments because they're literally not going to destroy their own economy. That's literally not in their favor. Extend the uniqueness. This goes cold conceded. That means that South China Sea presence expansion is decreasing decking cooperation. This is evidenced by things like ASEAN that doesn't want to cooperate because it would look like they're picking sides. Second argument is going to be that containment narrative argument that I just talked about. But then third is going to be a shift in the strategy, decreases offensive naval presence. All of that goes conceded. Also, the impact that I extended is probably going to heavily outweigh any impact they isolate. Let's go on to advantage 1 though. Their first argument is about deterrence, but one.
They just cross-applied the unique.
Oh, yeah, they just cross-applied the unique. I'll get to that one. They just had their second and third arguments talking about how that is going to be effective, but one is going to be that is too close to PRC to actually be able to launch. A little later, there's going to be that it's only in Japan, and the DF-21s can launch within 1,000 miles of mission effectiveness, which means that is simply going to be ineffective and trumped by the things like DF-21s, but also the C-27s mean that we don't even get aerial capabilities. That goes conceded, which is why China is going to be able to wreck these carriers. But then second is going to be the argument about cloaking technology isn't going to be this technology isn't going to be sufficient because we're so close to the South China Sea, which means that they're able to do reconnaissance on the things that we cloak in the first place. But third is going to be that first strike capabilities are never going to be credible because of things like salami slicing, because China is simply going to be able to cut out different parts of the different parts of the South China Sea by expanding, which means that this isn't going to be inevitable. But also on their island building, the affirmative is going to heavily outweigh any island building expanding in the South China Sea. But then second is going to be that who cares if they're island building? And this is going to be that they can only island build up to a certain point because there are more concentrated front lines instead of these red lines that cause misperception and miscalculation, but also that means they're going to be stopped to certain areas. But then the second argument here is going to be that the Allied anti-ship missile. Oh yeah, there's still going to be anti-ship missile, there's still going to be methods for deterrence, like the missiles that are located off the coast of Vietnam or in Japan, which means this deterrence is still going to be inevitable, which, is why they're not going to expand, because they wreck their economic ties. But now let's go on to the planned assault. Yeah, what's up? Yeah, now onto the planned assault. Right here they talk about how this destroys the deterrence capability. Yeah, it destroys deterrence by punishment, but we already articulate that deterrence by denial is going to be 10 times more effective. That goes conceded coming out of the LOC because, look to the warrant cited by the Yale talking about how it's the most effective in decreasing conflict, but it also is going to be able to solve for allies because it creates a balance between the United States and China, which means that the allies are going to feel more assured, especially if we're withdrawing. These carriers are probably also reassures the allies because it means that we now have different resources to reallocate to those to different allies, which means that they're even more on board. But also, a little secret of this is going to be that we can also deploy things like submarines, which allows for agile deterrence. That goes conceded, which means that this deterrence, the argument that that answers the destroyer's deterrence capability argument. Now on to the impacts. They talk about how they say that miscalculations are going to be inevitable because of there are no allies, but they can see that we saw we create ally cohesion because of the withdrawal from the South China Sea, which means that not only do we have more resources to reallocate, but it also means that that those allies aren't worried about expansion. But then the second is they talk about the disadvantages. There's not really an articulation as to why this is, but the impact's probably going to outweigh at the point where dual navalism is going to eliminate adversary assurance because it's going to eliminate the need or the provocative nature and the aggressive posturing that the United States has, which means that these armed races doesn't happen. But also it's going to be able to stop back for trade because it's the Asia Pacific is key to the global trade region. Is that all you there, Sam? Oh, and interdependence is ultimately going to solve war at the point where these countries are economically linked as well as the strong ally ties. It means that conflict is going to be significantly decreased in the status quo, but also on the disad. First, on uniqueness, all of their uniqueness arguments are inevitable in the status quo. They talk about all these expansion arguments. The plan is ultimately going to be able to solve back for these because we for all the political solves reasons. But then second is going to be the forced strike posture is ultimately going to lead to miscount because there's not this dialogue that's happening. Let's go to the links first. What is this hard link?
On uniqueness still, that and also Russia appeasement inevitable because of Trump.
Russia appeasement is inevitable because of Trump. The sessions is pretty indicative of there's been connections between the United States and Trump, which means appeasement is going to be inevitable, but also it's going to be hard-linked. No solvency. Xi Jinping is under massive pressure from the CCP to stay strong because offensive posturing means that that if the People's Republic of China back down, they look afraid. The plan solves that because China isn't ready for vote.
They don't look afraid.
Oh, they don't look afraid anymore. On the links. They say that conventional conflict is inevitable because Russia and China can wreck the United States in conventional war. That's not even close to truth. The United States has the largest military, but also we have the largest naval fleet, having 15 something out of the 17 carriers in the world or something like that. And Russia and China are reducing nuclear subs in single digits, which means that they're decreasing their naval presence in the status quo. But also, that'll be under this is going to be that it's going to wreck they're not going to go to war because of economic interests, which is ultimately going to collapse. Trade that goes conceded coming out of the LOC, and then if the economic, this is evidenced by things like the Gulf War, which significantly stagnated trade. Yeah,
their impact is warming. We just we're going to deck the EPA in the status quo. Warming is inevitable.
The impact is warming. It's getting decked in the status quo. Warming is inevitable. That means you prep because our impact's over.
On the uniqueness 2 of PMC, you say that the Aegis SM Block 3 system is too close to China to be able to intercept any sort of missiles.
No. It's that our naval presence is too close to China for THAAD or Aegis, which are deployed further away, to actually stop us before they hit our carriers, right?
Interesting. So you think Aegis is deployed far away from the U.S. carrier fleet?
I mean, THAAD certainly is.
Would it surprise you to learn that the U.S. 7th carrier fleet was built to hold the Aegis SM Block 3 system?
No.
All right. Were
It
you
doesn't
aware?
matter if they have S-300 SAMs as well, which you haven't made any arguments about. But the tech debate doesn't matter. The risk that they kill any one of our carriers in the South China Sea collapses U.S. credibility with all of our allies, and
If it's
only
true that
risk this calculation because there's so.
If it's true that China and Russia would be able to roll the U.S. carriers into status quo, why hasn't it happened?
Well, because there hasn't been an event of miscalculation, right? They've gotten close multiple times, but if one of our ships collapses, collides with one of their ships, or we accidentally launch at some of their civilian ships that are happening in the maritime areas where we are occupying, Or we do another one of our freedom of navigation operations, which they have continually said violates their sovereignty, and they decide that
Isn't it true that you've identified that deterrence by denial means we might still be able to lay landmines and other sort of defensive capability measures, which are going to also be
not
used
in
this
China's
calculation?
EEZ. Right?
So
Like,
you think
we're
we're
not
doing
going to be
offensive military capabilities in China's EEZ in this way?
like we move all of our like navigation to like the very line where law says we're allowed to go and say that that's chill, even
Okay.
though it's like
How does that
offensive
change under a
military
deterrence by denial strategy if it's still not technically offensive?
I'm sorry, I don't. It's deterrence by denial, forced posture, right? Like carriers aren't just going to like dump all their weapons in the ocean. It's the forced posture and the where they are located, and the fact that they're integrated with our allies at certain water areas to prevent China from expanding to those places.
You say deterrence by denial. Denial of what?
Denial of expansion in certain areas.
So expansion during the over the current EEZ, expansion to other countries, expansion in military modernization.
Expansion into other countries, right?
Okay, so expansion into like extension of their EEZ. Like, what if they claim to have access to the Senkaku Islands? Is that considered expansion?
The United States has already like said that they're neutral on particular territorial claims, but if the Chinese military launches an offensive strike against individuals who are trying to like test the Senkaku Islands, then that will probably trigger a security pact. But we've said that they won't do that.
Okay, how does those security pacts function in a world where you say deterrence by denial means we never act offensively?
That's not what the forced posture means. It's not that we never act offensively. We don't just sit there and twiddle our thumbs while like the Chinese start killing people, right? That's not the point. The point is that our current forced posture is a war footing that allows us to launch offensive military capabilities so close to the PRC that it risks miscalculation. The plan withdraws that forced posture into an allied frontline of complex naval strategy to deter them from expanding into areas where they ought not be, not allowing us to go where we ought not be.
You know what? I'm almost not going to worry about it. Cool. So the order is going to be the disat on top, then advantage 2, advantage 1. Everybody good? Mark, you good?
Did you say advantage 1, advantage 2?
Advantage 2, 1.
You're going to dissent first.
Yes. As Miley Cyrus said, it's a party in the USA. It's try or die for U.S. offensive capabilities right now to be able to prevent war, which is what you are conceding on the uniqueness level of the dissent, on the top of the dissent. The only thing you talk about in the uniqueness level, how you are uniqueness level in the status quo because expansion is the only way to be, expansion is only solving the affirmative. You are first of all conceding that the U.S. is holding the line right now that this specificity we reach on uniqueness one, which I want you to send across right now. It's not a question of whether or not Russia and China are going to continue to aggressively say that that is inevitable in even a post-affirmative world because of the reason that China needs to securitize more resources. You don't interact with the 6 billion barrels of reserve oil in the South China Sea has that China needs access to, specifically right now, boys there are experiencing economic stagnation, which is also the reason we read you out why Russia and China are increasing cooperation, which I want you to send across now. There's no answer to this, which means you are behind on the specific specificity of the uniqueness. You are, when you predict the uniqueness about the way Russia and China are aggressing right now, and reasons why not only are they they're not counterbalancing to posture against the United States, they are counterbalancing and specifically aggressing to an island bill to be able to guarantee resources, which you don't interact with at all. I was predicting across our 30 minutes point where you talk about how the U.S. is key to being able to stop this. You also are conceding that this is the reason why there isn't war right now because of the way the first strike carriers have SSBMs on their strikes to be able to prevent, to be able to deter Russia. All of this argumentation was conceded by the MG. Don't let the team argue up here and go back for it. They have conceded that the only way that the war is being prevented right now is because of the way the United States first strike capabilities are being able to stop it. On the links. You go for this appeasement in the middle right now because of Trump. Hello, have you heard of Mattis? Mattis is like Mad Dog Mattis, as his nickname is called. It indicates that he's always going to be never allowed appeasement because he wants a hardline strategy first of all. But second of all, also the affirmative is the only thing that is hardline appeasement strategy. Appeasement strategy works in one of two ways. Either you cause everyone to be able to first strike because they have the perceived U.S. weaknesses, the internal links that you are conceding on, the links there you are conceding on link 1, but also or Russia and China move to build power down, which means that offensive realism is always inevitable. You are conceding this straight at the MG, which means pulling try or die for the United States first strike capabilities as well as the carrier groups to be able to resolve the deterrence. So, yeah, the next one you need to go for is like the president of China is pressured to be able to posture right now because the affirmative is the only thing that solves because China is afraid. Hello, you are conceding all the economic analysis that we read you specifically under the second internal link scenario where you talk about why war is always going to kill the economy because of the way that four of the G8 economies are going to be involved in this war, and the reason that China and Russia need to securitize because of the access to resources and oil right now, which means that you have no answer to this coming out of the MG. It's dueling for you to get into the TMR. It's trying to for this aspect to be able to resolve because Russia and China aggressing is inevitable because of the securitization of resources, which means only is the question of whether or not U.S. defensive realism is going to be able to resolve. You also say that it's not like the U.S. Russia and China are never going to be able to rule in the conventional war. However, you are conceding first of all the RAND study, which you read no specific warrant against, which means it's the affirmative there's empirical studies to say that Russia and China would have the ability to beat the United States in a conventional war because of the access they have to the region, first of all, but also you are seeing the fact that it's a question of perception. They view themselves as being able to rule the United States in a conventional war, which means it's only a question of whether or not our nuclear deterrent capabilities on the first strike carrier are going to be able to resolve this. The next one you need to go for is talking about how we're never going to go to war because of the economic interdependence. However, you're conceding that it's a try or die scenario for Russia and China with their economic scenarios. When it's a question of resource securitization, their economic interdependence doesn't matter because it's only a question of who can get access to the most resources first, which means the only question of who has access to the South China Sea and the oil reserves right now, which is why they're out of the billions in the first place. You're conceding the specificity of this war on the internal links. Send across all of the internal links. There is no answer to this. You can see that you cause economic collapse, make it inevitable, which triggers the entirety of the affirmative because that only triggers the terrorism, increases the terrorism and smuggling impacts that you talk about, but also makes more inevitable, which makes your risk of extinction argument inevitable, which means it's only a risk of the status quo being able to resolve on the impacts. The only piece of impact you can see over on the dissent is talking about how the global warming is inevitable right now, which means there's no risk. However, you can see that the IAEA said in 2016 that warming can be reversed right now, which means to try to for the status quo to be able to resolve because of the way that war uniquely increases the amount of greenhouse gases and fossil fuels, like the particles that go into the atmosphere to be able to trigger global warming, which means to try to for the status quo. On advantage 2. You extend across your unique term, you are dealing with the link to our fast enough because we straight turn this straight out of the LOC on the tax stand turn. You only say that the result of India is like all of this turns will result of India watching U.S. posturing. However, you're conceding out of the LOC that the Prime Minister of India specifically identified that as the U.S. It's the potential for U.S. action because of Operation Spotlight. Operation Spotlight is a U.S. strike carriers that the affirmative talks about doing patrols between the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea. That means they have a really fast response time if there was a skirmish on the Kashmir border. That is the internal link scenario that we go for on this term, which you solely concede out of the MG to extend it across here. You also see that it's only a question of the United States and Germany being able, the potential for the United States and Germany to be able to stop a ethnic cleansing in the region because a war in the border will always increase, lead to ethnic cleansing, which turns that way the entirety of the affirmative because any like smuggling and human trafficking arguments that you try to go for are straight turned in a world of this, like where you can see that this is inevitable. On the human trafficking turn. You also say the act is going to outweigh. When you guarantee cause genocide, like the act is never going to be able to outweigh. Genocide isn't happening in the status quo. Try to for the status quo. You can say that the gray areas mean human trafficking is never going to be able to resolve right now. You say trafficking is increasing in status quo. However, you're conceding that the fact that we have military capabilities in the region right now is the reason why we're able to check back. Look at the fact that on Seventh Fleet, there's the Global Hawk drone right now, which is key for surveillance. That's why we know that there are human trafficking operations going on in the Southeast Asia, because we have the surveillance to be able to track where the smugglers are going and how their routes are taking them to be able to stop them. That's why you don't interact with specificity of the great. Like the Gray's argument is classifying your ass as an answer to this turn. You only make dehumanization and human trafficking inevitable in the world for you. You said in cross-acts you're cutting the Seventh Fleet in half, which means that you got any ability for the United States to be able to resolve this question of human trafficking and all in the first place. This internally straight turns your terrorism and increasing smuggling, but also makes your the Pakistan turn makes your risk of triggering the first strike doctrine inevitable in a world without U.S. The U.S. presence, deterrence presence. Pakistan's just going to aggress right now. On the overfishing impact. First argument on impact defense I want to read is that the NOAA fishing stocks has significantly improved by recovered 37% of their endangered species, have now come off the endangered species list, and the trajectory is expected to continue. But also the United States and China have recently passed new environmental regulations, which mean that your fishing restriction, that increased fishing restrictions and climate conservation, which means there's no propensity for them to be able to go to this overfishing impact in the PMR. It doesn't turn that way the disad or the case turns. On advantage one. Is this one? On advantage one. You don't answer them in no articulation talk about what deterrence we're doing right now. You just say that the military missile defense and that is too close to the PRC to be able to resolve. First of all, you can see that the Aegis system is on 7 right now, which is fully capable of stopping drones. That's why we built the Aegis missile defense system to be able to go on the 7th Fleet in the first place. But that's also the reason why we put the 7th Fleet where it is right now, to be able to check back for any sort of nuclear potential nuclear strike from China or Russia. But also you say that it's only going to work in Japan because of the 7,000 miles. However, you can see that the Global Hawk drones also that we have on the 7th Fleet specifically have the elements that they are able to.
They were able to solve for the S-27.
Oh yeah, the S-27 that you talk about is going to be solved by the Global Hawk drones. This is something that is unique to the 7th Fleet, which you are conceding. They hold into what they said in cross-sex. They said that in a post-act world, they decreased the amount of carrier strike groups from the 7th Fleet. This is something that is unique to the 7th Fleet, which means they got any sort of ability for us to be able to have deterrence, first of all, because all of the missile defense systems that they have are now decreased. The next one you go forward, talk about the cloaking technology is never going to work because of the proximity, and China can just surveil us. If China can just surveil us, it probably means that you have terminal no solvency for your affirmative anyway, but we would identify the Global Hawk and cloaking technology is always going to be able to resolve back, and that's the reason why China is never able to aggress against us right now, because of our first strike capabilities. On the next time you go forward, talking about island building China's not going to stop island building. However, you're conceding the economic triad scenario that we review for why China's island building in the first place. Also, I want you to extend across our Taiwan, internally again, our Japan rearm, which means that there's ethnic regions why China would aggress right now and continue island building, because they have a territorial claim that goes back to historical ethnic reasons, not just something that is about the U.S. posturing right now, which is inevitable in a post-primary world, which means you have no propensity to be able to solve for why China. You also don't read the reason why China would stop this aggression towards Taiwan or towards Japan, which means it's try or die for the affirmative. Appeasement strategy, extended across the appeasement strategy is never going to be able to resolve. It only makes your war scenario inevitable. This adds straight turns we have. There's no hope for them to operate.
Cool. Everyone ready? How do drones check back for Su-27 anti-ship missiles?
Have you heard about the NCAS network-centric airborne defense element?
No, because it wasn't in the 2NC.
Cool. The network-centric airborne defense element is a specific missile that is Global Hawk.
On the
I can talk about this stuff for days.
I'm sure we could. I really don't want to. You say that the United States is holding the line right now, and then read a series of arguments about how Russia and China are all building up their military offensive power because they're just going to endlessly expand no matter what?
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool.
Okay. That's a very oversimplification of the nuance of the
Okay. You say that Russia and China are inevitably going to aggress, yes? That's the only
We
answer.
say that China is going to build up regardless of whether you have your deterrence denial. That's the ethnic scenario we go through.
There's actually one more argument I want. You say that China and Russia both believe that they can hold the United States, but offensive military strike posture is deterring them. If they think they can destroy us in an eventual war, why is deterrence going to stop them?
Because we have the nuclear deterrence capabilities on the first strike carriers.
Carrier strike groups on the fleet.
What nuclear weapons are launched from Air Force carriers?
Talk about the SSBMs that are on the first strike carrier groups that you have on the 7th Fleet. That's what you said in cross-sex you were removing from the Asia Pacific.
There are also a few places for us to be able to have airborne elements, such as like the bombs we drop off like an F-18 or an F-37. The Air Force strike groups which you remove are necessary to that type of thing.
Gotcha. Your econ internally is war, right? Like war decks economy.
Yeah.
Okay. On maritime cooperation, you said that the Prime Minister of India relies on the potential for U.S. action in the Indian Ocean. We withdraw naval presence from the South China Sea. Why do we link to this argument?
Because you remove the amount of carriers, like the Operation Spotlight that we read you as the internal link is something that would be affected by your removal of the carrier strike group, which is where.
Gotcha. Advantage 1, you say that, like, why would they stop island building as a result of land? What's the impact on island building?
It means that your act doesn't solve anything. Like, China's going to continue to island build because they want to get more access to the territorial claims that they think they have against, like, that goes back to the ethnic conflict between, like, the indigenous peoples within Taiwan versus China, the territorial claim between Japan and China. That's not something that is, like, caused by U.S. posturing. That's something that's a regional, ethnic, geopolitical conflict that is not solved by your denial deterrence.
On the dissent, you say Mattis will never allow Russian appeasement. We withdraw presence from the South China Sea. Doesn't this mean that Mattis will inevitably implement policies to deter Russia?
Probably not, because that would go against the ethic of your act. Your act dictates how U.S. policy functions. You are not. You don't mandate a specific strike group you get out. You are an ethic. All right. This is going to be an overview of the dissatisfaction case. Case.
Sorry, what did you say?
Overview, which you're pulling a new sheet, the dissad, and the case order. Anybody not ready? Cool. This is a debate about defensive versus offensive realism. The affirmative thinks that U.S. pullout of offensive capabilities and first strike carriers is able to decrease the amount of military modernization and risk of miscalculation. The problem with that is that all of our disadvantages in the indicted defensive realism, both on an empirically and a perceptive level. The ace point is empirically. You have considered the fact that the reason why World War I happened was because of perceived U.S. perception. That means perceived U.S. weakness. That means it doesn't matter if your articulation indicates the fact that there's some sort of that we would actually maintain some sort of second strike capability, or that allies would be able to be protected. It's a question of how you're perceived. You don't even say the word perception. The MG probably indicates you're going to give us a lot of leeway on this argument, and not let the EVMR go hard for this articulation. We have also articulated that Russia's empirical response to impeachment is always aggressive. You've considered a number of articulations indicating this is true. First of all, the way the Russian response to the EPA system that the United States pulled out in Poland, but also the way that the response to the New START Treaty and how they refused to work with the United States on the Iran nuclear deal indicates the fact that Russia's response to the affirmative action is necessarily going to be violent. You do not make any arguments indicating the Russian part of our scenario indicates the fact that your Yale scenario might be true, might work in the Yale study in their empirical hypothesis, but it doesn't make sense in the real world contextualization where we're reading the specific empirical warrants. This is a warrant comparison. You're going to prefer our warrant because we're telling you how the world has actually functioned as opposed to the hypothetical studies of the affirmative. But also, we are winning the perception debate because you have not touched this articulation of the MG. You say miscalculation, but that only becomes inevitable in a world where power vacuum is all of the South China Sea post the affirmative. There are two devastating concessions on our perception. The ace point is that China's identified that it needs an 8% growth rate. That means if the U.S. is perceived to not be area denial anymore, then that creates a great opportunity for China to be able to get access to the South China Sea and the billions of barrels of oil there. But the piece of point is that how Russia perceives this region is specifically key to their hegemony, indicating the fact that they will perceive the U.S. weakness as an opportunity for them to expand their opportunity to get access to be a global head, to be a regional hegemon, indicating the fact that even if it's true that there are some sort of military capabilities we would have, like, I guess even if we got rid of all our groups, we still could have maintained like some level of hegemony. Other nations should not perceive it in that way, which triggers the worst scenario that is not happening in the status quo. This means we're rolling you on the probability debate because it's a question of deterrent strategies that actually caused World War I versus one that is causing that is not actually war indicating in the status quo, which means your miscalculation scenario is worse than the disadvantage. Miscalculation is A, not happening in the status quo, B, not happened yet, which means it's pretty low, pretty not probable, and it hasn't actually triggered a war, which you're going to compare versus the disadvantage where you give you empirical warrants as to how this has actually caused a whole lot of violence. But also you're going to give us preference on magnitude because we've articulated one, how this is the internally to collapse in the global economy, which is necessarily not only caused killing billions of individuals on the questions of property, which probably outweighs and turns your overfishing and terrorism scenarios, but also it's a question of how we're able to resolve this question on climate change and a massive sort of war, which will also outweigh your advantage one impact, talking about how war is necessarily the biggest impact in the debate. On the disadvantage. Uniqueness 3 is a devastating concession that I want you to extend here. This is not answered at all in the MG, and you're not going to give Sand any leverage on this in the PMR. This means that first strike carrier groups are specifically the reason why war is not happening in the status quo. Extend our articulation indicating from General Powell saying that this is the best way that we're able to resolve the question of Russia's and China's offensive capability in the status quo. It's the only thing that is stopping war right now, which means getting rid of that creates a trial scenario for China and Russia, which means they will necessarily engage in military conflict. This is 100% probability. You'll completely concede. They say that offensive posturing is solved in the world of the affirmative. No. China will continue to posture offensively, just not against the United States. You can see that in the LOC. They'll continue to posture against Taiwan. They'll continue to posture against Japan. They'll continue to try to get access to regional hegemony. In the app, it's super unclear as to how the U.S. is going to respond to that. They say Mattis is going to be able to resolve this because he has a lot of, he's a big guy. Your arguments under the app is a change in U.S. strategy. It's not a specific change in which missiles are deployed and which missiles are not deployed. You're a change in strategy, which ties Mattis' hands. It means he's not able to resolve the question of the internal link scenario, which means all of our impacts will fully conceded. You can extend those scenarios turning the entirety of the case. But on advantage number 1, our articulation is that the specification matter because it's an issue of whether the U.S. is holding the line in the status quo. All 3 impacts are predicated on our war actually having how naval deterrence will trigger a war and how trade will be solved. We articulate those things are pretty good in the status quo and how the U.S. naval supremacy is able to resolve these impacts right now. You do not want a unique reason as to why there's a risk of decline out of miscalculation in the world. We solve miscalculation. We solve your affirmative. On advantage number 2, the Pakistan and India human rights turn the impact turn and outweigh the affirmative because it's a question of terrorism probably solved in a war where Pakistan is not in a war and human trafficking is not prevalent.
And then we'll do advantage 2, advantage 1. This is out. Everyone ready? The cooperation advantage goes mostly conceded throughout the entirety of the TLEC Sea and the 1NR so long as naval presence exists in the South China Sea. Asia and United States cooperation will not exist, which means that maritime domain awareness is impossible because there are a series of gray zones surrounding the areas where United States naval presence exists, which means that they will never want to cooperate with the United States for 2 reasons. 1, they can't send their independent ships into those areas to counteract trafficking and overfishing, but second is that all the cooperation with the United States is viewed as intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance operations. The 2NC and the 1NR are both conceded the balancing thesis, and it says that all of our allies are heavily economically dependent on the People's Republic of China, which means that they don't want an overly offensive strategy, which means that maintaining the alliance is only possible in a world that turns by denial because we are losing the war now. You have conceded all of the warrants from the app because you spent so much damn time on the DISAD, maritime cooperation proper. Overview does a lot of the uniqueness debate, but their impacts, their link terms don't make any sense. You say that you concede the no link on the India turn, which says that we would not affect any of the U.S.-Indian naval operations in the Indian Ocean because we only withdraw to deterrence by denial via the South China Sea, which means that we would actually be on the outside of the South China Sea, not to the other side of it, meaning that we would be able to still have quick responses for India, but also this is not, the ethnic cleansing impact doesn't outweigh India Code Star Doctrine because launch of nuclear weapons kills everybody, have to be alive, be able to evaluate the value of things like cultural genocide. This is, you have to be alive before you can evaluate anything, which means that cultural genocide doesn't outweigh, but also this, the next argument is that they say the Navy is trying to be able to solve this. Gray zones is an inevitability claim that says that trafficking is inevitable so long as we are fraction cooperation between the United States, China, and Asia, meaning that the United States Navy is not going to be able to solve it. Global Hawk drones aren't able to solve because it's also risk miscalculation that launching drones over the Chinese naval territory could look like violating their sovereign airspace, but also could look like they could miscalculate it for a predator drone looking to launch strikes, means that it risks miscalculation in the status quo. Now the plan is able to solve 100% of that because they allow for cooperation post-plan. It pushes the security dilemma to the People's Republic of China to either overexpand, which risks collapsing their economic relations, conceded framing issue. If they need 8% growth, they won't abandon all of their goddamn trade partners by going into their EEZs and fucking with them, meaning that the plan is necessarily critical to be able to solve that. There's no risk of any of your war impacts, but the plan is necessarily critical to solve. Don't need the overfishing scenario. We'll just go for terrorism. You've conceded that AQP is most likely to be able to target India, which triggers the Cold Start Doctrine, means they launch strategic nuclear weapons against Pakistan, who responds with rogue commanders that have control over TNWs, and it kills everyone because 2/3 of the world's population lives in this area. Magnitude is a conceded, is a not answer to this debate. They have a conventional conventional war potentially that kills a couple billion people. We have a 7.2 billion people impact, meaning that you should heavily preface the affirmative even if there's a risk of all their offense. Naval strategy. Only going for the top half of this this advantage that says that DBP is failing in the status quo because of salami slicing, meaning that they can just continue to expand inside the United States red lines, which means that they solve none of their offense because having offensive four-strike posture doesn't solve the low-level tactical expansion. It only solves large, broad-based expansion, which isn't the PRC strategy in the status quo, meaning that none of your arguments actually solve, but also the risk that the DF-21 or the Su-27 can eliminate the strategic utility of the character is sufficient to link turn all of their offense, because if the collapses of the 7th Fleet means that India and every other ally freaks out because we don't have the naval capacity to respond anymore because our closest fleet is in the Gulf, which means that they would not be able to solve for any of their offense. But lastly, the risk that they said that island building and all this kind of aggression is inevitable. We say that the security dilemma is a conceded framing issue that says that China will not continue to expand if they require relations. If their true goal is hegemony, then they won't want to collapse those relations. Risk of miscalculation exists in the status quo, which triggers all of your offense, but diplomacy and hegemony can't check it because Xi Jinping can't back down, conceded that on the dissat now. Their first argument contradicts their Rand study, which says that if they think they can roll the United States, why does offensive four-strike posture deter either China or Russia? That makes no sense. If they think they can crush us, they would have fucking done it already, which means that deterrence by denial is a better strategy because it solves the Fiat conflict that is coming as a result of low-level tactical expansion by China. Second argument I want is the fourth argument that Skylar Riggs says that hardline can't solve because of internal pressures on Xi Jinping from the CCP, meaning that hardliners will want him to continue to stay strong, but the plan allows that to go away because when we back off, it means that China doesn't look afraid when they stop engaging in things like island building and expansion, but rather that they've already somewhat won. That means that they don't have to continue to expand to maintain the hegemonic view of their security allies, but they can maintain their economic relationship by not provoking their critical trade partners. They're with 90% of trade in the region, which means that our allies would abandon us before they would abandon China. Now, the third argument that they make in the 2NC that Mattis will not allow appeasement solves, inevitably, their only answer to this comes in the 1 and R, which means that it's new, but also deterrence by denial in the South China Sea doesn't tie his hands against Russia, because guess what? Russia's also, it's like a spreads the two continents between Europe and Asia, meaning that they can do deterrence by punishment in Asia. That might work for Russia, but it doesn't work for China. Conceded the distinction between those two. Lastly, their impact claim makes no goddamn sense. I have no idea how they got to this war, but in the status quo, there's not there is expansion and aggression inevitably. There's only a risk that the affirmative would be able to solve that by pulling the South China Sea, pulling naval presence out and avoiding the sector.
Good debate.
What's the plan?
Oh.
Okay, can you just write out point tests and leave it for us?
Here's just not the copy they give us.
I'll go to top 14 too.
It's a sneak.